Can you see the little belly kicks? She was like starting to shift back and forth, and every time I put the camera there, she stops. 54 days left before I get to hold this little girl and meet her and stare into her precious little eyes. I can't believe we made it to 32 weeks, third trimester, and we only have 8 weeks to go or less. Last week I did an ultrasound at a new facility, and they gave me a little bit of a scare. They said that the baby's getting really big, so they can't tell for sure, and I think maybe the equipment was not really up to par with the place that I have been going, which has way better and more specialized equipment. But what he was saying is that he sees something laying over my cervix. At the time of the ultrasound, that could have been maybe like the umbilical cord that fell down or something, but in the report it says possible Vasa Previa. And it also said that I had a complete placenta previa. Now, I've known about the placenta previa since like 16 weeks or 20 weeks, something like that. So that's something that we've been tracking, and it's been slowly moving out of the way as my belly grows. But I was definitely not tracking a Vasa previa, and I ended up doing a bunch of research, talking to the OBGYN about it, and getting a referral for a third opinion because I went into my OB's office. My 32-week appointment just happened to line up with all of this happening. And during that 32-week appointment, she was like, oh, let's do an ultrasound and see what's going on. Baby's heart rate looked perfect. She did an internal exam, and she was like, I don't see a Vasa previa, and to me, it looks like your placenta has moved away from your cervix. She's like, let's still get a third ultrasound and get a specialized opinion with way better equipment, and let's make sure that this is indeed like not a Vasa previa and that your placenta previa has resolved. And so we went to that appointment at 33 weeks, and I am recording this after the fact, so I do have the results, and I will link that video here so you can go check out the results. It will also be below in the description. So many of my friends have been so generous and just giving me gifts for baby girl, and this one was one of my favorites. Like, what a thoughtful gift. I am just so thankful, and my heart is literally like overflowing when I open this stuff and imagine seeing her in it and using all of these things and being a mommy. She said that one of the things that she swore by was these Cloud Island little onesies from Target. And the reason why she loves them, one, because they're so soft. The fabric is like, oh, it feels so good on your skin, but they have these double zippers. And so when you're changing a diaper, like in the middle of the night, you can just unzip that part and not have to take all of their clothes off. It just makes it so much easier to change diapers. I made like the holy grail of omelets this week. I was craving an omelet because we go to this breakfast restaurant who does this exact same omelet, but it costs like $30 to buy it. This has been one of my pregnancy cravings. I keep wanting to go back to this restaurant. So I just wanted to make it myself. I use these Amy Lou sausages from Costco. They don't have any nitrates or antibiotics, and they're gluten-free. These are really good. They taste amazing. I sauteed all my vegetables up. We have jalapenos, red onion, bell peppers, all of my sausages. I made sure that those were nice and browned, and then I cut up a tomato on the side, and then I added that last because I didn't want it to get all melty. This omelet was perfect, but if I could do it again, I would use a little less vegetables because this thing ended up being enormous and we couldn't even eat it all. I've been getting fresh sourdough bread at Costco as well, and they give you 2 loaves. This is a really good bakery from Santa Cruz. Because there was so much vegetables, I had to use 5 eggs, and I just added a little bit of half and half and then whipped those up and poured them in a pan on low heat. And then once I pour the egg in, I don't touch it. I just let it solidify, but not cook all the way, just enough to where I can add the vegetables and then flip it over itself. I had to serve this with tater tots, of course, and then I folded the omelet over itself. It did break a little bit, but this is the best looking omelet that I've ever made. Usually it always falls apart. I like my sourdough with butter, real butter, and Devron likes his with honey drizzled over it. We've been keeping the butter in the fridge, and I didn't take it out soon enough, so that's why it looks like that. Me and my husband shared all of this, and we could only eat half of this thing because it was so massive, and then we saved the rest for the following morning. I also had salsa on the side and then ketchup for the tater tots, and I like to dip my omelet when it has this much amazing vegetables in it in sour cream, and I didn't do that before I was pregnant, so I'm not sure if that's like a weird pregnancy craving or if that's a normal thing. Let me know what you think. I still have been drinking coffee in pregnancy. I do watch my caffeine intake, so I definitely am not drinking coffee all day, but I have some in the morning. I love Dutch Bros. My order is an Annihilator with light ice. I always get iced coffee. Like, does not matter if it's snowing outside, I'm gonna get an iced coffee. And I get the light ice Annihilator, and then I have them add white chocolate and coconut. It is so good. I was relaxing in the morning as much as I could because we were going to be heading into San Francisco and checking into the Harbor Court Hotel. Not only is this hotel like right on the skyline and also a water view of the entire bay, it's close to all of the piers and the Oakland Bay Bridge, which is absolutely gorgeous, especially at sunrise. So I started packing and took an everything shower. So we're going in with the raw Shea Palmers. We just covered the belly in hyaluronic acid. We're gonna do a little bit of moisturizing for my face. Just showering and washing my hair and doing like a full shave. Being 32 weeks pregnant is so much work and I'm tired, so I'm laying down and putting my feet up because my ankles are just getting swollen anytime I'm on my feet for more than like an hour. I got my TDAP vaccine at 32 weeks pregnant, and I had to look up like why is it important to get a TDAP, because when I was in my OB appointment, my OBGYN recommended TDAP. Doctors usually recommend this vaccine between 27 and 36 weeks of pregnancy in order to help your baby get passive immunity from you. It protects your baby from tetanus, diphtheria, and the major one is whooping cough. Whooping cough is a highly contagious respiratory disease, and if baby gets it, it can be life-threatening. Tetanus is a nervous system disease, and it can cause like serious tightening in the jaw and the neck if the baby gets it. And then if baby gets diphtheria, it can cause issues with swallowing and breathing, and it's also a highly contagious disease. I can't believe baby girl is now 16 to 17 inches long, and she's weighing in at 3.5 to 4 pounds. On the actual ultrasound, the estimated weight was just over 4 pounds, and so I just can't believe that she is now 4 pounds. I use the What to Expect app to track my pregnancy week by week, and one of the examples they used of like the fruit or vegetable of how big she is was a full stalk of celery. And I just imagine like walking into the grocery store and picking up that huge thing of celery, and I can't believe that that is the size of my baby now. And even on ultrasound, like you can tell she doesn't have room to fully stretch out in there anymore, and so her knees are tucked in towards the chest and her legs are all folded up. It just doesn't seem like it's possible for me to have a 4-pound baby the size of an entire stalk of celery inside my body right now growing. Another thing the app mentioned is that her digestive system is now fully formed and can function outside of the womb. All of her organs now are fully developed except for her lungs. And so baby's born at this gestation, like if she were to be born today, she would do okay outside the womb. All of her organs would function. The only problem is the lungs, because the lungs are the only thing that are not fully developed yet, and they won't be until baby is full term. And they consider full term 37 weeks. So if baby was born, the likelihood of survival is very high at this point. It's just that baby may need a little bit of help breathing from a NICU and machines and things like that, oxygen. If you are at risk for preterm birth, so anything less than 37 weeks, within 7 days. So if you're at risk for preterm birth within 7 days, they will give you a steroid injection. Usually we give it like in the thigh muscle. It's called betamethasone. And this is a steroid that helps babies' lungs to fully mature faster than they would if they didn't have the steroid. If it were me personally and my water broke before 37 weeks, really before 36 weeks, honestly, then I would definitely go somewhere that had a NICU. Or if I was in preterm labor and having contractions and thinking that I might imminently deliver, I would definitely go somewhere with a NICU. Usually baby is okay after 36 weeks, but technically baby is not full term until at least 37 weeks gestation. My baby girl is now practicing breathing. We saw her practicing breathing on the ultrasound, and it just looks like normal breathing, but she's in utero. And how they do this is they actually breathe in amniotic fluid through their lungs, and they're also swallowing amniotic fluid and peeing it out, and all of that amniotic fluid is being used to help them mature not only their lungs but their urinary system and their digestive system. We had a really cool ultrasound tech, and so she put the ultrasound over baby's diaphragm, and she was like, look, she's practicing breathing, and she let us watch it for a few breaths, and it was just really neat to see her doing that, and also like very reassuring. What I've read too is that babies will now get the hiccups, and you can feel it. I definitely feel it now, and I can actually see my whole entire belly moving every time when she has like the hiccups, that motion. But apparently the hiccups also help them to practice their breathing and mature their lungs. Baby started out having like no fat and the skin being very clear and transparent, and then she started putting more and more fat on, and as she puts that fat on, of course she gets cuter and more plump. But the skin also changes too. So the skin goes from very opaque and see-through to less and less and less see-through. And now her skin is no longer see-through at all. That means she has enough fat where you can't see through her skin. And I feel like that's such a milestone, because when you see these preemie babies born and they don't have much fat at all on them, it just makes me really, really grateful that she's plumping up and that we've made it to 32 weeks gestation already. I just keep thanking God for another week. Like, thank you, God, you kept her in until 32 weeks. And I just pray that I can keep her in at least another month. We just arrived in the city and we are getting ready to check into our hotel. This month has been so fun for us. We took a trip to San Francisco, which I'm kind of showing all of the footage here. This was kind of like an overnight date night situation where we had a really, really nice dinner and woke up the next morning to a sunrise. Our hotel had a fireplace and really beautiful views from the room, which was our favorite part. And then the next day we just went out exploring San Francisco and had like the best pho. I don't know what it is about pho and being pregnant, but it just tastes so good to me and I crave it, especially like the Vietnamese egg rolls and the beef pho. But I love being in San Francisco and just being surrounded by water, and it was such a nice trip. It was like a day trip, but then we stayed overnight and spent the majority of the next day. And then in the beginning of the month, we went to Tahoe, and we spent like an entire week in Tahoe. My great aunt and uncle actually live an hour from that area, and so we went and saw them as well, and it was so nice to see family. It's fun too, being pregnant, and they're like watching my belly as it grows, and we were brainstorming about girl names, and it was just really nice to sit and visit with family. And then we went up and stayed in the Ritz-Carlton for a night, which was so amazing. The Ritz has a beautiful resort. It's actually in Truckee, but they call it the Ritz-Carlton Lake Tahoe. And it's a mountain lodge. The snow is coming down. They have so many amazing amenities. And overall, it's just a really cozy and refreshing place to stay. Once we checked out of the Ritz-Carlton, we checked into our cabin, which was in Hope Valley, which is a little bit south of Lake Tahoe, like 20 minutes south. It was kind of an upscale, luxurious cabin, and what I loved about it is it had a fireplace inside the cabin, and it was very rustic, but very modern as well. And the snow was coming down. We made cinnamon rolls one morning, and then every single morning I was making coffee in the French press. I had been dreaming about just like staying in a cabin and being up in nature, surrounded by trees, in the mountains, like in a beautiful cabin, all cozy. And that's exactly how it was. I was kind of thinking of it as my baby moon, but I'm not done having baby moons. Like, I'm ready for another trip already. I just feel like I need to be a little careful about how far up in the mountains that I'm going. We were like 2 hours probably from a NICU, and we did get some pretty intense weather, and so it did make me a little nervous. I felt like I was far away enough from my delivery date to do it, but definitely from here on out I will not be doing that, and I'll make sure that I'm at least in the city and close enough to a NICU where I feel a lot more comfortable. Being a labor and delivery nurse, I've just seen so many things happen, and I just wouldn't want to put myself in the situation where I don't have any resources if I need resources. I started producing colostrum too, and I don't know if you guys have tried to self-express, but what you can do is just kind of like push on the breast tissue, and then it kind of loosens up any fluids that might be in your breast, and then you pull back on the nipple and you kind of squeeze forward to see if anything comes out of the nipple. Don't do this too often when you're preterm, like at least wait until you're 36 weeks or you're cleared by your doctor to do it, because nipple stimulation can cause contractions and preterm labor. So just be very careful. But probably like once a month or so, I kind of try to do like a little bit of self-express and just see if I'm producing or if anything comes out. And so I'm sitting there, I try it, and a huge drop of colostrum comes out. And I was like, no way. My jaw just dropped, because that was the first time that I had seen colostrum. And so I told my husband, I was like, guess what? I'm producing colostrum. And he's like, nah, let me see. And so then I tried the other side, and a drop came on that side. And so I'm definitely going to be producing, and I feel really good about that. I do have breast implants, and I was a little concerned that maybe that would affect my milk production. But overall, there's a lot of women that come in labor and delivery, and they have breast implants and they have no issues feeding at all. I think it can happen where you have implants and it does affect the milk production, but I think that just really depends on the placement of the implants as well as the incision, because they can do an incision through the armpit, they can do it under the breast, or they can do it around the nipple. A lot of women prefer around the nipple because you don't see the scar. There's not really any scar visible, but that can damage the milk ducts. And so I would highly recommend, if you are planning on having babies and breastfeeding, that you don't get your incision done around the nipple, because it can damage the milk ducts and then affect breastfeeding. And that doesn't mean it's going to, but it could. My incision is under the breast, and then the implants are not placed under the muscle. They're placed above the muscle. When I consulted with my surgeon, he said that it was not necessary for me to go under the muscle, and so I didn't. I do plan to exclusively breastfeed my baby and also pump. I have 4.5 months of maternity leave, and then when I come back to work, I plan on pumping while I'm at work, like every 4 hours, storing that milk and then giving her that milk so that my husband can heat up the milk and feed it to her while I'm at work during the day. I have several friends who have been successful doing this, and then they still actually breastfeed and have baby latch onto the breast when they're at home. One thing I thought was really interesting too is that your milk is actually different during the day than it is at night. Milk that you pump during the day, or even when you breastfeed, when you're giving your baby milk during the day, it has more cortisol in it, and that's like what helps to keep us alert. And then when you're breastfeeding and pumping at night, the milk has higher levels of melatonin in it. Melatonin gives like a soothing and more like of a relaxation feeling, whereas the milk in the daytime will give baby like more energy. So yeah, fun fact, I will definitely be separating my daytime and nighttime milk if I'm pumping, and also not mixing them together. Also, when I started producing colostrum, I'm not sure when I actually started producing because it's been like a month since I've actually tried to see if I was producing anything. But when I tried to do like a little bit of self-expression was at 33 weeks. And I already made all of my 33-week videos before I made this video. And I totally forgot to put it in that video. So I figured that I wanted to share it still because it's really interesting. And I want to keep track of like when things are actually happening. So I officially started to notice colostrum production at 33 weeks of pregnancy. Devron and I have been having so much fun traveling and vlogging and eating amazing food that I had to just kind of compile all of the videos here, and then I figured I would just do a voiceover of the 32-week update. So I hope you guys liked this style video, and I will see you in the next video at 33 weeks.